Welcome to the official podcast of the National Pickleball League, where we go inside the NPL.
Welcome to Everything and the Kitchen Dink. My name is Michael, Hammer Mike Chen, and I'm here with my co-host, David, the Professor George. Welcome, David.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good. It seems like we've been spending a lot of time together. We just came back from Houston on our final regular season weekend in Houston. And you know what was unique this first time, as you know, David? We decided not to stay in a hotel. You and I, along with 7 other people, decided to stay in an Airbnb. The 9 of us. Imagine that, on the same team, the Kansas City Stingers. What did you think about that?
Michael, you've come a long way from your don't talk to me, I'm staying in my own room, to finally we can be roommates. And now you're behind the getting the house and researching everything. And you got us this real nice Airbnb so everyone could stay. I'm very proud of you, Michael.
Yeah, as you know, I've never roomed with someone in a hotel room for like 25 years other than my wife. And then you begged me to room with me in a hotel room. You're my first roommate other than my wife in 25 years in a hotel room. And I think we did okay. And, you know, you went to bed a little later than I did, and I was fine with that. And you had some habits we won't go into that were kind of weird, but, you know, I won't go into that in this podcast. But then I said,
you keep saying how weird they are, but, you know, then I'm like, do you want to room together in Houston? And you're like, I don't know. And so I said, fine, I'm going to stay at the house. The next thing I know, you're like, can I stay at the house too? Well, there's not room. But what if I get us a bigger house? So I'm just saying.
I like you to be my housemate, not my roommate. How's that? So the fact that we were in the same room, I had my own bed in my own room at the house. You were sharing it with someone else from another team, by the way, from the Indy Drivers. And so I don't know how that went, but it was a fun weekend, we have to say. All kidding aside, we had 9 of us. We were able to drink, share stories. We even had a pool party the last night where we jumped in the pool, had a great time. So I thought it was a great bonding experience for the Kansas City Stingers, and I think it'll get us ready for the championship. What do you think?
Team bonding was great. I mean, I don't get invited to a lot of parties. I'm not cool like you are. And it was epic for me. The music, the swimsuits, the jumping in the pool, the drinking. I mean, it was like one of those cheesy 80s teen comedy parties.
It was.
I thought it was great. It got a little wild there for a second. I'm like, whoa, Manelli. But
I know. It felt like a frat. Like my wife said, what do you guys live in a frat? I'm like, yeah, it felt a little bit like a.
It felt a little bit like that.
Like a frat party, but we had a great time. We stayed out of trouble. We had a team bonding experience. And by the way, let's talk about our team a little bit, because before we bring on the regular season champs, who is going to be our guest, Carl Foster, I want to talk a little about Kansas City. We were 2-2 every week. We ended up 3-1 this week. So our overall final season record is 11-9, over 500, came in 7th place. The first 4 teams gets bye, so we don't get a bye. We have a first round playoff. 7th, we play the 10th seed, Austin. But then if we win, we end up playing the 2nd place team. So we don't play Houston. I mean, we don't play Bocca, which is good because they're the hottest team right now. We actually end up playing a 2nd place team, which I think is Columbus, Hot Shots. So I think we're in position well. We're ready to peak for the playoffs. We have a lot of great players. You and Sato already Pod 1 players. We bring up Darryl Wyatt, who's playing like a top Pod 1 players. So I think we're deep and ready to take on the challenge of the playoffs in Cincinnati in a few weeks.
It was great for me personally, and it was almost epic, right? I had some great wins. I beat some people I've never beat before. Stefan Andren, Dave Furman, Dave Weinbach, John Sperling, Pierre, the new guy, Keith Jane, some people I'd never beat before. But I did blow our team breaker with Seattle. I had a couple points to gain there that I didn't gain, and if we would have won that, so we could have gone 4-0 and be having a much different conversation with Carl, which we'll have in a minute. But so it was a great weekend. It could have been epic.
Yeah, no, I by the way, I think you did very well in Team Breaker. You know, Team Breaker was exciting with you. We didn't win that one. We won the first Team Breaker though, right? We played and we won that one against Coachella Valley, which really helped us out in the morning. So we had 2 Team Breakers. We won one, we lost one. And I was excited about that because I think actually I did okay on that one. So that was exciting.
No, you were the difference maker. And instead of bringing up how great you did, maybe we should just go ahead and bring on our guest, because let's not talk about how great you are anymore.
No,
we could go on and on.
No. First of all, I didn't have that great a weekend, but I'm excited for our team. We went 3-1. Excited for you, David, because you've already named all the people you can beat. And so we've covered how great you are. You kind of gave me a little credit for Team Breaker. So now it's time to talk to our guests, because at the end of the day, as much as we love Kansas City, we came in 7th. The first place team was the Boca Raton Picklers. And so I would like to welcome our guest this weekend, Carl Foster, one of the owners of the Boca Raton Picklers. Welcome,
What's up,
Carl.
buddy?
Hey, my pleasure, guys. And sounds like you had an Animal House party. We didn't get the invite, but it sounded like a pretty good idea. Our players actually had a couple of Airbnbs also, but we weren't invited. The owners, we stayed in our own separate hotels, and so we didn't want to get in the mix. They have their own parties. They get their own ways to get pumped up and get ready, and it worked well. So whatever they did, keep doing it. So we're not gonna step in. They did go the Airbnb route, which I think was a great move, because their camaraderie has been so good this year that they all wanted to stay together, versus last year when maybe they wouldn't. We couldn't have put them together if they wanted to. So that's the story we can get into a little bit later.
Well,
I'm going to cut Michael off a little bit, because he always asks the first question, and then no one else can ask a question for like 5 minutes. But that's one thing I picked up on, because then when I watched my match over this morning, it was actually, they were interviewing Tao and Mersha from their win. And so I was listening to what they said, and over again, literally, Mirsha said, "I love this team," right? So how much and how important do you think this camaraderie was for your success this season?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the difference was, this team actually loves each other, and they're supporting each other. If the pod ones are losing, or they're not, stepping up, pod 2, pod 3, but everybody is around the other matches and rooting each other on. And there's just, we just saw that togetherness. It doesn't happen right away, obviously, but by the third match, by Cincinnati, we started gelling when we won the 4 there in Cincinnati. We'd gone 3-1 and 3-1, so we were under the radar. People weren't paying much attention to us, but we were just gradually sneaking up there. And then we took the 4-0. I think that took us over, like, hey, this is a solid team.
And who predicted you to go 4-0 that weekend in Cincinnati?
Master Chen. Master Chen, former Pickler. Sorry, Michael, you couldn't join in the celebration, but at least you finished 7th.
Yeah. Why did you draft me? I was going to ask you, Carl. I thought you loved me. I thought you said we love the Hammer. Why did you draft me this year, huh?
Because they wanted to win.
You were on a cheat sheet, but you went before the last pick, so we couldn't pick you. So you went so high up. Kansas City picked you like middle of the draft. We said, what? I said, they must have saw something in you from the Picklers last year, which you did play very well. You were sneaky good. You won a pod 1 match last year, which that's got to be in the record books. That was the Michael Chen rule. Because you guys won pod 1, we had to change the whole format of the league.
Well, I did get drafted too high, and I love being on the Kansas City Stingers, but I also have wonderful memories of playing on the Boca Raton Picklers in our first year. So could you just tell me go back to the beginning, like what made you get into pickleball, and what made you decide that you were the first people that called the National Pickleball League, and why did you get involved in buying a team? I would love to know that.
Yeah, well, I was already, right out of COVID, I got into pickleball. I started my TV show, Inside Florida Pickleball. And then I started getting involved with the events with Ken Herman and the APP. I started the Delray Beach Open Pickleball Tournament. We had Ben Johns, Annalee, we had everybody there at the big stadium. Then I had the Bocca Masters. So, I was in the event business and broadcasting business all my life. So in tennis, and I'm still involved in tennis. I still do some tennis tournaments. The Delray Beach Open Tennis Tournament, I'm still the voice of that for 28 years, and a couple of junior tournaments. So, and I owned a team tennis franchise with Billie Jean King back in the day, the Miami Beach Breakers, and I had Ely Nastasi, and remember the old folks there, Rosie Casals and Tim Gullickson. But I like the team format. I've always played team sports, whether it's basketball or team tennis or whatever it is. But I've always been a team sports guy. So the team tennis really gave me, now when I look back, I said that really gave me the infrastructure of managing a team. The team wasn't as big as it is now. We only had really 6 players at that time in tennis. But then, being involved in pickleball, and Rick Redemar, who's my partner, Rick and I played basketball together. We played tennis together. We've known each other for 25 years. I knew him before he was even married. He was an attorney when I first met him, because my attorney, he was interning at that office at the time. So that's how far back we go. And then just out of the blue, I hadn't seen him for 10 years, playing pickleball here at a local pickleball courts, only 4 courts we had in Boca. And all of a sudden I hear out of the blue, "Hey, Snake," which is what he called me. I look around and there's Rick Redemar with his nephew with an old Kmart paddle. I said, what are you doing out here? He said, "I'm just starting to play pickle." I said, "First of all, you got to get rid of that paddle if you're going to be serious." So I gave him an engaged paddle, and the rest is history. We've been playing together, and then I got the email from you. It's like, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "I love team." So I told Rick, I said, "What do you think?" I said, "Yeah, this is a great concept. I like the team aspect of it." And that's when we reached out to you, and right away we said, Rick said, "I'm in." So we said, "Let's do it." I mean, it fit into my business model because I'm 24/7 pickle. He's he's still a full-time attorney, so this is his hobby. It's my business. So
That's great.
yeah, so and we got to travel, and that was the fun part. His wife and my wife, we all traveled together, and that what's made our weekends, with the team. And then last year was real challenging for us, but we had a lot of fun, even though it was challenging. But I was putting the lineups in, working with you, and I got to give you credit because you taught me the team breaker, the first one that we ever won.
Yeah.
And this year we only had one team breaker, and we pickled. I think we set history record books. So I think we have the only team breaker pickle in MPL history. And then this past weekend we went 12-0 against Indy. So I think that's the overall only team pickle.
And that's the overall only team pickle, 12-0. And you said you did against Indy this weekend, right?
Yeah, the former champs. We needed, they knocked us out last year, so we needed to pay them back.
Wow. Our co-host Rick Witsken isn't here to defend himself, so
that's why he's not on. He's hiding.
Oh, wow. Well, but who did you pickle on the team breaker?
To ask. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask who won the? Did you pick on the team breaker? 11-0. Do you know? Do you remember? If you don't, it's
Austin,
all right. Austin. Wow. Okay, so 2 tough teams, but that's Jen Gallwas' team. So she's not here either. So she probably didn't get on this podcast because she's afraid you're going to say that as well.
Yeah, we crushed the bone. We crushed the bone crusher.
Right. I'm sure she's just scared because we beat them this past weekend, and then now we're supposed to face them in the first round championship. So they're probably just scared to talk to us. So I want to talk a little bit more about the differences between last year and this year. Maybe since your experience last year, did that change your philosophy or how you put the team together or how you drafted a little bit? But I did want to mention the comment that you gave Michael. You gave him a Rick Witsken compliment. You said, that's what he gave me. He said, "Dave, we really wanted you, but we didn't want to waste a top pick on you." And so that's basically what you said to Michael. You wanted him as long as he was available in the last round.
We figured he'd be our sleeper. We could get him later. We didn't think about his potato. His reputation was preceded him. So Kansas City jumped out and took the stinger. I thought the Hammers were going to take you for sure. I don't know why they didn't take you. It was built in.
I think they were planning on taking us before the last round, but I don't think they were going to take us as early as Kansas City took us either. So I think they were shocked as well. I
think he's still a little jealous he was not a Hammer. I think he talks about that a lot. He has even have a Houston Hammers t-shirt.
No, for the record, I want to knock off the Houston Hammers in the playoffs. We win against Austin, knock off Bone Crusher Jen Gallwas. Then we play Columbus, and we're going to knock off the tree trunks. These tall guys were all like 6'4" and above. Knock them off. And then we play probably Houston Hammers in the semis, and then we knock off the Hammers, my namesake, before we knock off the Picklers in the championship. That's my goal.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, but you interrupted my question. We have a guest on, and I'm trying to ask Carl a serious question.
Sorry.
So,
go ahead.
What was your process, and how'd you put the team together this year?
Yeah, it was different. Last year, it was just Rick and I. We drafted the team. There was only one combine the first year. Because of my tournaments, I knew a lot of the players, but I didn't know there's so many names and people on that first draft. I had no clue who they were. So some of the players, after we saw them play the first year, I said, "Oh man, if we would have known this mainly the women. We didn't know a lot of the women. So some of these women were so good and strong." I said, "Oh man," and we drafted more local people that we knew last year. Some of the people that, we felt comfortable that, hey, they weren't going to embarrass us, and we thought they were good players because we have a pretty good bed of players here in Florida. Started off with Steve Kennedy was our number one pick, who was on my TV show, and I knew him for so long. And he was at our press conference. Michael, you were down. We kicked off with the mayor. We had a big press conference. Steve was there. We went out and played some afterwards. He was all pumped up. A week later, he goes, I'm going to the doctor about my knee because I get a little twinge. Next thing you know, I hate to tell you this, I got to get surgery. I'm out for the year. I said, you got to be kidding me. You draft a number one draft pick, and he's out for the year. At least we didn't pay him millions of dollars, right? Like some of the NFL players. But so that's right from there. It was a season to remember. Players in and out and trying to figure out how do we fill a number one pod player. As we had Paul Olin come in, we ended up with Scott Johnston. Sod played for us. So it was a mixed match. But you know what? We had the worst regular season, and then we came back and finished third in the bronze. So we went from third in the bronze to this year. So Rick and I said, I did the lineups last year. Rick was involved a little bit. We tried to work in our captains. Jen Dawson was with us last year, so she helped out with the ladies, which was awesome. But with the men, it was always a struggle, just trying to figure out, So we put the lineups in, and quite honestly, we had players saying, I can't play with this player. I don't want to play with this player. And Rick and I was going, you deal with it. I can't deal with it. Rick's not, I'm not dealing with these players. They said, let's just go get ice cream. So, well, that was a challenge. We learned a lot, so forth. But we're happy the way it ended, put it that way. But this year we said, you know what? And we brought it up at the owners'
Hey,
meeting.
wait, before you say how it ended, you were in last place. We were last place in the regular season, bottom last. People are saying, don't worry about the Picklers in the playoffs because they're not good. And some of another, we beat Naples, right? And we beat Denver and came in third. So really shocked them, right? A good ending to our season last year.
We started out, we lost to Indy like 7-5. We were in it with Indy the first round. And then we came back, and like you said, we beat Denver and Naples, which had good records at that time, to finish with a bronze. So that was a successful season for us. I mean, out of 6 teams, but coming back so this year, everybody's modeling us. Everybody that didn't make the top 4 saying, hey, look what Bocca did last year. So now we're on the other side. We got a target on our back, and everybody's saying, you guys are going down, and like Houston was really, like you said, Houston was like dominating almost all season. And it was just like this last weekend, we knew the last match, if we could just get to the point where if we beat Houston, we could win the weekend. We didn't think we would ever catch them in the cumulative games because they were so far ahead. But that first 12-0 win over Indy put us right back in, and then Houston lost twice. Actually, they lost 3 times, and they only won a team breaker by 1 point. They could have lost all 4 that last weekend. I mean, that was like a dream come true for us, and we won all 4.
Right. Well, I want to talk more about this weekend, right, where you won the last regular season weekend. Before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, right? Because without the sponsors, this league wouldn't be happening as successfully as it is. So first of all, I want to thank Gamma, right? The chuck ball, the official ball of the NPL, Gearbox, right? The official paddle, which I play with and a lot of players are playing with, which is the official paddle of the NPL. We use Incrediwear, right, David? You're a big, Incrediwear user, and a lot of other people use
3 or 4 I wear every match.
I love their socks.
Yeah. Active recovery wear of the NPL official. The Ernie ball machine, which Sonia, our CFO, new CFO, uses all the time. The Ernie ball machine. We have Julian Coffey, one of the players in the league. There we go.
Drinking
Julian.
some right now.
And that gets us going because the matches start at 7:30 early in the morning. And having the Julian Coffey is a big help there. And Fat Tire, which is like, we just drink a lot of Fat Tires after. Well, this weekend we drank a lot of Fat Tires.
Especially at our animal house party, there's a lot of Fat Tire games.
Fat Tire Friday night, Fat Tire Saturday night, Fat Tire Sunday night, and then we wake up to Julian Coffey because we got to go, catch our flights or play, play our matches. And then we had a couple new ones this weekend as well. We had DEXA which does body scans and creates really a focus on healthy living, a preventable disease. They were the official presenting sponsor of this past weekend in Houston. So we welcome DEXA on board. They will probably have some stuff for us in championship weekend for us to test out the scanning. And so I'm excited to test out their product. And then also Yoba, which David, you know a lot about, David Wells, right? There you go, the Yobo hat. So
I always have my Yobo hat on. David Wells, Chicago, great player, great guy. Been over to his house. He has a great pickleball setup at his house. He gave everyone Yobo massage pistol because they're very portable with all the attachments. They also make a whole line of warm-up and exercise gear. And I have all his stuff in my bag. I've known him for a while, and it's just a great company.
Yeah, no, so great sponsors, and we love all of them, and hopefully we'll continue to grow our sponsorship as we grow this league. But getting back now after that commercial break, Carl.
I forgot to answer David's question with all that about the.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Michael never answers my questions either.
Because we drafted, when we had the owners' meetings, I think Rick brought up and said, what we'd like to do is when you draft your number one player, have them in the draft room with you, or you can call them to help you draft your teams. Well, we knew we wanted to get the right person. And Mercer Marario lives right here. We know Mercer plays with us. He coaches the Johnsons here. We've known him for a long time. And he didn't play last year. He filled in. We talked to him last year. He came to the combine. And we knew we wanted to draft him number one. And we were just hoping he was going to be able to drop down to our pick. I think we picked 7th or something. So once we picked him, he was ready to jump right into the draft room with us and help us because he knew every player, pretty much every player. There's some he didn't know, which helped out from the combine and last year because he didn't see all the matches last year. So we said, all right. So we had all our cheat sheets out in the war room with Rick Radabar, myself, and Mercer, and we really went to work. And I think our draft, we picked up some strong players late in the draft, like a Brian Shapiro, almost next to last, Peter Prodnoff, Audra Spielberger, which we saw play in a tournament with Taylor. Taylor won a tournament right before the combine. And Mercer saw her. He goes, we got to get this girl. She was strong in tennis, just really getting acclimated to pickleball. Man, she has come. Talk about a sleeper. She's come on probably the strongest as a number one pod one. She was playing pod 2 the first week, and we weren't sure she wasn't gelling yet. With Kara, with Mercer. We're trying to figure out she was pod 2 or pod 1 player, and she's jumped into pod 1 and she's just taken over. She's probably our almost it's hard to say MVP because I think Tao has probably won more matches than anybody. He's like right at the top of the league as far as match wins. And just a great guy. He won last year. He won. He's got the winning, he knows. He said, hey, I played for Indy last year. I know the camaraderie we had to win it all last year. I feel the same. I feel more this year with this team than I felt with any other team. And that's the way all our players feel, that togetherness. And our motto is together. Our cheer is together. So we got Brian Levine, who gives us all the stats, and he just breaks down everything. It's just like after every match, he's got every stat possible. He's just like a numbers guy, right? So he's constantly, he's during the matches, he's running over, hey, we need this. Okay, this differential. Okay, if we win this, we're going to win the differential. He had it all outlined. He had all game planned out there, what we had to do. So sometimes a little bit overload. Sometimes you don't want to know all that information, but he's been a big asset too. And we drafted, Mercer, we drafted local South Florida people again, but at a different level. Brian Levine, Susie LeBlanc didn't play last year. They played tournaments together. We've known them for a long time here. Getting them together was great. And then obviously Mercer is right here. And then we had some other players locally. Peter Prodnoff from the west coast of Florida. Pam Lippy played in our Survivor. She won our Survivor combine, and she ended up on our team. Eric Alvarado also won the men's, but somebody else, Naples, picked him before we even picked him. So that was interesting because, we were prepared to take him if, he played for us last year. So I just think the team is gelled. It's really, we give credit to Mercer. Because he knew that he not only knew how good these players were, but he wanted to draft athletes. He wanted to draft athletes either from other sports so that we're, not that everybody's an athlete, but just really conditioned athletes.
So they could get better as the year gets along, which is a good strategy. Yeah.
And knew the team concept. Tracy Flynn was a basketball coach. Peter Prodnoff played minor league baseball. People that played other sports that were, athletes in other sports that are now playing pickleball. So that's one thing he said, I want to draft solid athletes,
so it's very interesting, your draft, for a second. Like, you've always wanted to draft that local flavor, right? And which I think is a good idea because you want to build that community and a fan base that want to root for the Boca Raton Picklers. It's hard to root for that if nobody's from that local area. And you tried that last year, but it didn't work that well until the playoffs last year. This year, you did it again, and you said different players, but it's worked well. Do you believe that going forward, that's going to be a strategy? He's going to draft mainly local players, but also make sure that they're top players, but also supplement, because you do have people not from the local area that you also supplement because they're some of the top players, and you cannot look just at Boca, right, to build the best team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a strong base here, obviously in South Florida to choose from. So, I mean, the local players we drafted last year aren't on the team this year. They didn't, they didn't even, a couple of them didn't even play in the league. So the local players are all different. I mean, Mercher's local. I mean, he works right here with a lot of these players. He teaches a lot of them, Susie and Brian. So that's the nucleus. But, we want to host matches next year. So we want to build the local flavor.
Yep.
We have to figure out keepers and that whole thing. But we want to build the foundation of Boca. The mayor of Boca called us, live at our dinner, which was awesome.
Congratulations.
Brian Levine texted him. Brian's very close to the mayor also. So he texted him, and he's come out to all my events, and he was at our press conference. You met him, Scott Singer. He plays pickleball. So right in the middle of our dinner, he called up live and just, congratulated us. And we're going to do probably be in the Boca parade for, maybe the boat parade. So we're working on
Should you wait till after the championship weekend before you go do a parade? Because, as much as you're in first, look out for the Kansas City Stingers and some other teams. You can get knocked off. That's don't you want to wait till after that before you take a parade?
Well, we're not. Yeah. Well, the parade's in December anyway, so we have to wait till after October. But he's talking about he's going to honor us for winning the regular season championship. And we're going to give him something. Just we got 3 weeks to dwell in that we're number one in the regular season, but we know that the playoffs are coming, so we're not counting our chickens before they hatch. But if we do win the national championship, then we'll have a ticker tape parade in Boca.
There we go. There we go.
Are you going to get one of those cool Rick Witsken banners like they put up in Indianapolis?
The billboards you're talking about, right?
Billboards. That's right. A billboard.
Billboards. Yeah, I think we'll get a billboard. We'll probably hang it at the city. We'll get the key to the city. He already offered us the key to the city of Boca. So that's pretty good.
Wow. So tell me, this past weekend, what made you guys are very dominant this weekend. You were 4-0, right? And you had a dominant win-loss record this weekend. What made the difference? And by the way, it wasn't like you played only your top players. Yvonne DeQuino, right? Who lives close to me, who doesn't always play every weekend for you, right?
Right.
She got a chance to play this weekend. You played her, and I think she had a good record too. Like, you paired it up with like Brian and Susie LeBlanc. I heard she's excited. Like, wow, like holy cow! It was like your whole team was part of your championship this weekend. What did you do differently that caused you guys to have such a dominant performance and go 4-0 this weekend?
Yeah, we only went 41-7, so that's a pretty good weekend.
41-7, so you're plus 34 for the weekend.
Yeah.
Holy cow! Yeah, how did you do that? That's probably the record too, by the way, for this year. 41-7 was probably the best record.
Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, we started off. We felt Indy was going to be tough. We didn't take any teams for granted. I mean, we knew OKC was struggling because they had a lot of injuries, and we're sure if Beth was going to play or not. But we go into the weekend. We knew Princeton was going to be tough. They were tough last time. They're not an easy out. That was a tougher match, and we ended up beating them 9-3, but it was like 4-3. So we won a lot of 3-setters. So it wasn't like we just walked all over people. I mean, this league is very competitive where anybody can beat anybody, as you know. So it's a matter of getting you're right, because Jenny Purdy, we didn't have one of our top women there because she was at college with her daughter. So Yvonne, who's our sub, came in and played Pam Lippy, but we teamed him up with Brian Levine, and Brian takes 99% of the court. So Yvonne says, this guy takes 99% of the court, but just make sure you get that 1% right.
I guess you got that 1% right? Right?
Yeah,
you won.
Everybody played awesome. It was so good to see. We lost some Pod 1 matches. I mean, Mercer and Tao lost a couple of matches. But the big one was in Houston when Kara came out with Audra, and Sherry Quarter and Helen Wilhelm hadn't lost a match all year.
Yeah.
Undefeated.
And they were 27-5. Both of them were like 27-5. That's an impressive record. Yeah. Tough to beat that team.
We lost the last time we played. We beat Houston the last time also, but they lost 11-10, 11-10, and they wanted revenge, and they came out and won in straight straight sets, and that set the tempo for the Houston match. And it came down to Houston. If Houston wins, we end up out of the weekend at 3-1, out of the money, and in second place. So that game was for really all the marbles.
Right.
So we were so jacked up for that, and the players were just they were like, man, they were dialed in and said, all this other stuff doesn't matter. That we have to win this game with Houston.
Yeah, that's right. That team battle Houston was epic, and Houston, after losing that team battle to you, said, wow, that was a humbling experience. We've first time been humbled all year. And I was shocked because they were confident that they were gonna win it at hometown, we
beat the guys beat the Hall of Famer, Scott Moore twice.
Scott Moore,
So they got a good team. There's no denying Houston, but they had they had their own drama going on, and they had their own issues, and they have to figure it out too. And they were saying, we understand what you went through last year now. They're going through some of that now after they had such a great record. Then all of a sudden they just blew up. And Houston, they're home. It's their home match, right?
So they got to get their chemistry back. So let's just talk about it, because I know we're not going to make predictions, me and David, for the championship weekend yet, because we're going to save that for that week. But since we have you on now, I want you to say, who are you fearing the most of the other teams, right? Obviously, you're pretty confident about where you are, the number one team. But who are you worried about? Who are the teams you're worried about that would, if you get upset or you lose, who are you worried about of all the teams out there?
Well, I think Columbus has one of the toughest teams that we matched up against. We split with them. But, Houston, we handled Houston. Okay, I'm not saying they're not a tough team, but I think we've got their number. But Columbus is a team, and Denver also. Denver's sneaky good. Denver's a tough. So those two teams. Anybody. We had a tough time. You guys. Kansas City's a tough team. Princeton. There's four teams. The top four buys, but the next four are just as good, I think. So any of those next four teams. But like we proved last year. Anybody could get strong. Everybody could get healthy.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether it's OKC coming up or Austin. Austin is not an easy out either. Even though the record doesn't show it. So I'm not saying anybody's an easy out at this time, because records are 0-0. That's what our team knows. It's a blank slate. We can't take anybody for granted. We're glad we got a bye, because that's one less upset we don't have to worry about, because you don't have to play. If you can't lose, you don't play. Right? So it's one less match we have to play. And we'll be full strength. Jenny Purdy will be back. That's the only player we're really missing. Well, our guys have been here pretty much all season long, and they've been strong.
You got to watch out for like Coachella Valley. They didn't have Dane Gingrich the last 2 weeks, but he'll be back for the championship. So got to watch out for them, right? And they're going to be full strength. They were missing a couple of people this past weekend. Got to watch out for Seattle. You got Stefan Andren, right, who played on our team, Bocca, last year. He's doing really well playing on Pod 1. So that's another sleeper. So you're right. There's 6 or 7 teams that really believe, or more, that believe they can win it. So you're saying, David, remember that, he's saying that Denver and Columbus are the two teams that he's worried about the most.
I just remember, and I marked a little timestamp, when he said Houston, and then he said, we got their number. So now Houston can plaster that across the bulletin board, and I can get off their bulletin board material. Speaking of which, I had a long conversation with Romy and Amy a little bit. I had picked against them every weekend, called them overrated, right? And then they win week after week. We have Sherry on. I'm like, all right, you convinced me. You're the number one team. I'm picking you. Then they totally just play the worst weekend awful. And then they're like, please pick against us again, right? Put it all on Columbus. Put it all on Bocca. So has the mentality changed a little bit? Because now you're the front runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the target on our back. We like being under the radar. We sort of like sneaking up and just people saying, they're good, but they're not, the only weekend we felt the pressure was when Michael picked us to win all 4 games. And so I tried not to let the players know that if they didn't hear the podcast. But so don't pick us. Don't pick us. Everybody, we already have everybody's number, because Columbus is mad at us because every time we won 2 weekends, they went 4-0, finished second. They go, we go 4-0, we can't even win. We can't even win the weekend. You guys have done it to us twice. So I think their team is strong, but we wouldn't face them. We were glad that they jumped over Houston, quite honestly, because I thought Houston was going to finish second, but they snuck right in there with the differential. And it was the last 2 games we played, which didn't mean anything to us. We could have just tanked it. No, not tanked it, but but it was our pod 3 players, and they both won. because Houston could have ended up tied, I think, with Columbus with differential if they would have won those 2 matches. So now Columbus is 2. So that means, our division is a little bit different now because now Houston's on our side, right? And then
no. Houston is not on your side. Houston and will be on the same side as Columbus. You will face in the semis if the
Denver.
favorites play out Denver. So one of your teams that you worry about, you're going to face Denver.
Right,
Danny Werfel, Scott Fliegelman, Chad
Yep.
Shane, they got talented group of people on their team, and it's going to be interesting, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Most importantly, since we beat Austin, I mean, I guess I'll have to text it to her. We beat Austin. I just want to say that as many times in the program as I can. We beat Austin, and since we beat Austin, we're 7. We're opposite you too, because I do think you guys are kind of the deepest team, top to bottom. Even someone that I don't think you mentioned, Alan Mendelson, he was going to be kind of my sleeper, and I'm like, can we get him? And then we choose Michael Chen instead. So that just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But
Hey, he beat me once, I beat him once. So it's a flip of a coin beating Alan and myself.
Mendelson's another guy locally. We wanted to get Poker also. He was in the Florida Combine. And Mendelson plays with our guys locally here in South Florida. So he was another guy that knew Brian Levine, and those guys are playing well together. He started off a little rough and just trying to fit into the format. It's not easy to jump into this team format, as you guys know. Some of the players come in, they're nervous. And he's netting balls and just losing some early games, but he's come on strong the last several games and just really, they came back. We had the one match where they lost 11-4 to Houston, and then they pickled the guys the next 2 matches. They rolled off 22 straight points, Golden Pickle, 22 straight points, 11-0, 11-0. I think it was against Houston.
Wow.
And they did the same thing this time, but they were down 9-2 in the third set. They came back and won 11-9, rolled off 9 straight points. And that's the type of season we've had where it's just been last year, Michael, remember we were like the worst team with 3 setters, 11-10 losses.
Couldn't get over the hump.
We're probably the best because we've won more 3 setters in the 11-10s where we were losing last year. That makes such a big difference. It just really does. The first 3 games we played Princeton, they were all 3 setters. If we could have lost those 3. If we lose those 3, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, so I agree. I'm going to make a kind of a statement here, just as a prediction. In case you face Denver in the playoffs, it's going to be a toss-up. I'm looking at their lineup now. Molly Carter, Natalie Hill, Janny McKenna, in addition to names I mentioned already. You also have Scott Johnson on this team. That team is deep and can go toe-to-toe with you. And you have a Heisman Trophy winner like Danny Werfel that's going to pump up his team for the playoffs. I would say I'm going to love to watch that matchup. I can't wait if that happens. That's going to be an all-time matchup if you guys meet them, and you would only meet them in the semifinals. But that's going to be exciting, is all I'm going to say.
Well, Carl, I want to interrupt because Michael mentions Danny Werfel over and over and over again, along with his many man crushes.
Oh, my God.
His man crush. I know he does.
Did you know that Michael Chen did not win the Heisman and did not play professional football? Because he pointed those things out to us just in case we didn't know.
Just in case you didn't know
that. No, yes, they beat us the first weekend we lost to Denver, and then we beat them the second time. But so it's and Brian Levine is very close with Danny Werfel. He's on his foundation. They're good friends, and Brian's already posted things. See you in the championships. So he's already talking trash to Danny Werfel. So I think both of them want to beat the other. So that's a personal side. But bottom line, that's one of the teams that probably gave us the toughest time. Denver and Columbus were probably our toughest outs. Even though Seattle, Kansas City. I mean, like I said, Princeton.
Anybody can win. It's the play. That's what's so exciting. There's no dominant favor. You probably are the favorites, but lots of teams can win it. So, Carl, first of all, I just want to thank you again for believing in the NPL, number one, and being one of the first team owners. Number two, for having a great first season in the playoffs that we were surprised in going from 6th to 3rd, right? Got to just bring that up because that was a great ending memory. I'd rather end strong like that versus being like OKC, who had a great regular season, but then because of the injury to Bath, they actually didn't finish as well as they should have. And then this year, you had a great regular season. Congratulations to you so far. But the story is not finished yet, right, Carl? Is all I'm saying. The story is not finished. But congratulations on the story so far.
Yeah, and I want to if I could just thank our sponsors too that helped us out this year. Pro Drive Paddles. We had Curaleaf. Also, we had Aim 7, which is a great fitness app, and I think they're working with several of the teams. and Dink Eyewear. We had the glasses. They came out there. They were sponsored of the league last year, and they came on board with us late. So we want to, thank those guys for helping us with just product and some cash to help expenses. And as we know, it's takes money to run the league, takes money to run these teams, and the players are excited to get money at the end of the weekend. I think that was a good move this year. I think that was a positive thing where they're playing for something, instead of just at the end of the season. And now it's the big bonanza coming up in Cincinnati. We went 4-0 in Cincinnati. I don't want to say anything, but that was a pretty good place for us. So that's another thing. So all the planets were aligned when you said Cincinnati. Our players go, yes. Yeah. That's where we had our best weekend. Well, now second best weekend. Houston. We can play in Houston again too. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Carl. Always excited to have you on. You're a great ambassador for the game of pickleball, great ambassador for the NPL, and we'll see you at the championships, is all I'm going to say.
Sounds good. Thanks, David. You guys do a great job with the podcast, keeping everybody informed, and we love being a part of the NPL. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, buddy. I try to emulate you.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl.
Bye-bye.
So that was exciting, David, huh? What do you think? You think
it was just nice to get a few words in, without I had to interrupt you as usual, but I only had to interrupt one person instead of multiple people.
Yeah. So, well, what do you think? You think they're we don't have to make official predictions, but you think they're the odds-on favorite?
I think, like you said, I don't think there's obviously they're a slight favorite, but they're not a huge favorite because, like he mentioned, Columbus, Denver, very difficult. I just want the record to show that he did say he had Houston's number.
Yeah, so that's good. That's going to be bulletin board.
And Romy, make sure you come for him, not me. But yeah, I think there's and even when I look at us and, the middle of the pack people, if everyone's playing there, lineup changes, there could be some very interesting matchups, like you said. 1 versus 4, Denver versus Bocca would be epic.
That would be so. I can't wait to see something like that happening. And whether or not we make it to the semis or finals, which I hope we do, and I'm bullish that we have a good chance, there's going to be some epic matches, and not only in the semis, but even in the quarterfinals. Because like Carl says, not only the top 4 teams, but the next 4 have real good chances as well. So the next 3 weeks will be exciting. And what also was exciting is the mayor of Boca called him. So the NPL is getting visibility, not only among us pickleball players, but visibility in the cities they play for. Houston had visibility. I had an interview with some newspaper in Houston. We are starting to get visibility and traction, and having just Vince Vaughn buying a team, right? Part of a team, and the majority owner of Coachella Valley, has given us more visibility, and will continue to do so. And so I think the future's bright. But before we talk about 2025, I can't wait till Cincinnati, David. You and I on the same team, maybe in the same house again. But
all right, let's do it.
We're going to go to battle together, right, David?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for listening to our podcast. On behalf of David, the Professor George, and our 2 co-hosts who aren't here this weekend, but Rick Ripskin Witsken, as well as Jen Bone Crusher Gallwas, which we're going to come get, right, against Austin coming soon. My name is Michael Hammer Mike Chen. On behalf of Everything in the Kitchen Dink, which we go inside the NPL, I want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the official podcast of the National Pickleball League. Please stay tuned, as we will be back soon with our next episode as we go inside the NPL.